Hello. Yesterday it was Father's Day. So everybody in social media suddenly remembered that okay, they are not orphans. So they have a father. So suddenly everybody starts paying tribute to the father. But unfortunately, I couldn't because I have a father today. I had a father on yesterday, which was Father's Day, and I'll continue to have a father in those days, which are not even Father's Day. So, anyway, so belated congratulations to Happy Father's Day. Now, when we talk about Father's Day, it uh, kind of takes my mind uh, back to back to post-colonial studies in a very strange way. Now, obviously, I mean, you guys would wonder that what am I doing? What has Father's Day got to do with post-colonial studies, or what has post-colonial studies got to do with Happy Father's Day? Now, this is my answer, and my answer would owe a lot to a very important post-colonial theorist called Frantz Fanon. Now, Frantz Fanon uh, has theorized that white man is the father. White man is the father. And why? Because white man discovers, orients the natives, the others, the commonwealths, the colonized. Now, while the Vasco da Gamas, the Columbuses, the Amerigo Vespuccis, they discover the Orients, the us. That means what basically they are doing, they are not discovering those lands. They are giving birth to us. Yes, they are giving birth to Orients, the natives. So we didn't exist. Before, we Indians didn't exist at all. And what existed was actually a piece of shit, or a kind of a savages or monsters or barbarics, as I have already mentioned, pathologized barbarics, savages. So noble or ignoble, I don't know. But once our Christian fathers, once our Christian fathers discovered Indias, the Africas, the Latin Americas, then we are born culturally, ideologically, economically, pathologically, socially, politically, what not. And had they not discovered us, I mean, we would never have existed. We never have existed. So, the existence of sons and daughters, or the ideological colonized children, have always already been dependent on the discoveries of Christian, westernized, enlightened, West European fathers. Reminding you of Happy Father's Day again. Now, the law of the father, as Mr. Sigmund Freud keeps on mentioning, the law that castrates, the law that often results in penis envy amongst the psychoanalytic others. Now, the law of the father is the law of the God. Yes, you heard me right. The law of the father is the law of the God. And what does God do? God orders, oracles. So the Christian, West European, the enlightened English fathers, the Portuguese fathers, the French fathers, the Spanish fathers, they kept on producing their colonial bastards, their colonial children. And therefore, this father and this children, should I say, the colonial fathers and the colonized children from Africa, the colonial fathers from West Europe, the colonial fathers from the whites, the enlightened Western whites, the colonial fathers, and the colonized children. The colonized children are always from Africa. They are always from South America. They are always from Southeast Asia, often from Australia. So the colonized children and the colonizing Western Christian father, they share a relationship. And the relationship has already been encoded, embedded, and codified in power politics. And this power politics and this power dynamics of the relationship between colonial father and colonized children is that of Oedipal one. Yes, is that of Oedipal one. Now, why am I saying Oedipal one? Because the POCO, post-colonial critical studies, is a sort of resistance against the father, against this paternal law, against this phallic authority that father would always connote. And therefore, the children from the ideological colonized children from Africas, from Indias, or from Latin Americas, they try to fight back ideologically against this castration anxiety. Therefore, what does that do? It invariably takes us to a national consciousness. And what has national consciousness got to do with our discussion? The national consciousness is a kind of attempt, Oedipal attempt, to retrieve the mother. It is a kind of Oedipal attempt to retrieve the mother. So the national literature, so the national consciousness, they are part of our attempt to retrieve the mother. So the whole love of motherland is necessarily implicated in this search for the lost mother, and to fight back against the castration anxiety, the Freudian castration anxiety of the children. But the father remains the father. Again, I remind you, very happy Father's Day. Yesterday was Father's Day, and congratulations to the belated happy Father's Day. and therefore, the white man, the father, and the colonized children, they share a power dynamics. And this power dynamics is almost Freudian, is almost Oedipal. So, what happens therefore? When the native cannot fight the colonizers, the violence turns against his own people. The violence turns against his own people to work off their hatred. I mean, when you cannot fight your father, what do? You just word up that emotional exhaust that energy amongst your own tribes. And Franz Fanon thinks that these tribal feuds help relieve the tensions, the tremendous amounts of tensions among the colonized, among the Oedipal children that these Western enlightened colonizers once produced. And not that they produce, they still continue to produce. I mean, we are the examples, ironical examples of the ideological children of these colonial Oedipal power dynamics that Franz Fanon has been talking about. And these ecstatic dances of the tribal native are means of exhausting the frustration, their emotional turmoil and trauma. I might go back to trauma and trauma studies in some of my later uploads. Meanwhile, let's stick to this theoretical complications of Franz Fanon for the time being. But this process is cyclic. So the choreography of the tribal dance is repetitive, much like our colonial curse. So the choreography of the tribal dance is encoded within the colonial curse that keeps repeating us almost cyclically through culture, through vulture, through ideology, through economics, through society, through politics, and through what not. Through what not. Now, the wretched of the earth, the black skin and the white mask, they keep talking about how colonialism kept on dehumanizing these children, these colonized children of Africas, even the Asias, or should I say even the Latin Americas for that matter. Now, the relationship between father and the son, which I have already mentioned, that Oedipal one, is predicated upon two factors, two responsibilities. That is, the natives feared the whites. And why do they fear? Because they desired the position of the enlightened, Western, Europeanized Christian whites. Now, whom do we fear? Exactly whose position we want to usurp. And whose position we desire, we keep on desiring, would become the object of our fright. Therefore, native fears the whites and native desires the white. And why does the native fear the white? Because he desires the white. And why does he desire? Because he remains continuously afraid of the native. So the fear and desire, they complement and supplement each other continuously, ideologically, and almost Oedipally, in the Freudian sense, through the entire narrative residues of Franz Fanon. Now the black, therefore, tries to mimic, to use Homike Bhabha's phraseology, the white fathers. The black, therefore, tries to mimic the white fathers. Happy Father's Day again. And the black puts on the father's garment, the father's mask, the white mask. No wonder we have the title of Franz Fanon texts, which is entitled Black Skin and White Mask. Because the black skin becomes, or has been instructed, or has been interpellated, to use Louis Althusser, to know that it is a mark of shame. So what does the native do? What does the native seek to do? The native tries to hide that index of shame, that is the black skin. Because the black skin is not a skin, it is a text. It is epidermal text. And what does that text do? The text narrativizes the history. The black skin is a text, is epidermal text which narrativizes the history of colonized. And the white skin, similarly, is not a skin. White skin has never been a skin. So what is white skin then if it's not a skin? Okay, white skin is a text. And what does the text narrativize? The white skin is the epidermal text which narrativizes the history of colonization. And we could almost call it en blancamatio. That is, some sort of theorization, post-colonial theorization on epidermalization. Hence, the black skin, both black skin and the white skin are epidermal texts narrativizing either the history of colonized or the history of colonizer. Skin is texts. And therefore, the blacks, since they have been interpolated to know that their skin is absolutely a mark of index of shame, so they put on the further skin. And therefore, I'm sorry, I'm sweating a lot because of the sweltering heat. So excuse me for my ugly face, for my average looking video, or this visual grotesque. And therefore, the black skin always tries to hide itself under the white identity, under the white texts. And that means the history of the blacks are always silenced. But we need post-colonial historiography, almost a historiographic metafiction, to be able to deconstruct